Commissioner Glasser,
Here.
Commissioner Duggan,
Yep, here.
Vice Chair Reese.
Present.
Herring will not be here this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Hold, are you on? Think he'll be on later.
This is Steve. I am here, but I'm
Okay.
sharing.
Sounds great. Perfect.
Okay, if you are not speaking, please mute yourself. Okay, can we move on to the approval of the minutes? Is there anything that anybody saw that had issue with, or any errors or things that we need to address?
I make a
saw
motion
no
to
errors
approve
in
the
the
minutes.
minutes.
I second it.
Great. And would you call the vote?
Vice Chair Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Duggan,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell,
Yes.
Chair Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasser,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Okay, sounds like the minutes passed. I want to thank you again, Britt, for doing a great job on the minutes. And they were very clear and concise, and they weren't overly long. So thank you. At this time, if there's anybody that has any public comment on a non-agenda item, I will open it up to the public. You will have 3 minutes. Since we're online only, you'll have to raise your hand or make yourself known at some way. We'll give a good 30 seconds to make sure that everybody has a chance to figure out how to do their Zoom stuff. But if you would like to make a comment on a non-agenda item, a member of the public, now is your time. Please make yourself known. Not look like we have any members of the public, but we might. But hearing none, I will go ahead and close the public comment on non-agenda items, and let's go ahead. We do not have any action items for this evening. If we could move forward to the informational items, and I believe the first item on the agenda is the Reimagined Destinations presentation.
Yep, that is me. I will, this is Peter, by the way. I will be just kind of doing an overview of the Reimagined Destinations program grant that we received last year, and where that put us and what the future of that looks like. So,
hey, Peter, could you, Vice Chair Reese, could you just real quick give us a quick introduction to yourself and what your position is with the town, just in case anybody in the public doesn't know?
Oh, of course. So my name is Peter Kasich. I am the Public Engagement Manager of Ireland, and I work at Town Hall. I wear a lot of hats. I try to facilitate any of our public engagement initiatives. I also handle social media and website stuff for the town. I help process our special events and also have taken over as kind of the town liaison to any of our tourism issues as well.
That's a lot of hats.
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
I'm seeing a blank. Oh, there we go. Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
See it just fine.
Awesome. All right. So last year, Miranda actually applied for Reimagine Destinations, which is a no match grant through the Colorado Tourism Office. And I kind of took over as the point person for that. And as of earlier this month, we completed that. So I kind of want to give a bit of an overview of what it was, what we got out of it, and where we are going from there. So the overall purpose of Reimagine Destinations was to look at and then advance what our community and tourism stakeholders believe to be priority actions uh, in regards to tourism. So we were looking to start establishing a leadership structure when it came to tourism and kind of understanding what those community values were and how we can identify ways to both manage the tourism we're having while being responsible when it comes to those core identities. So I also want to make it clear that this was the intent of this is not to just get as much tourism into Nederland as possible, because you've probably seen we have a lot already, and more would just kind of cause more issues sometimes. But it's more to manage what we and also utilize what our resources to uh, take better control over that, and not just let the tourism that is coming through town do what it will, basically. So through this program, we received a destination assessment, which included a number of things. You may have remembered the Reimagine Nederland survey that went out last year. That was part of it, but also looking at where tourism is coming from around the country and talking with stakeholders and land managers in the area. We also had a full day workshop with community members to kind of address what came from that assessment and what the core priorities to focus on would be for our tourism management structure. Afterwards, we had 100 hours of consulting with the Colorado Tourism Office, which just ended earlier this month, which is why we're doing this recap. There is also a $20,000 value creative asset production shoot that we are in line for. That is basically we'll tell them when we want, what time of year we want a production team to come out and either get pictures or video, whatever we kind of want that we can use in anything, but with an idea towards tourism that are professionally done. They're looking at about 18 to 24 months out from that, so we have a bit of time to kind of figure out what we want before that even comes up. But we are on the wait list for that. So before we all started this, one of the things that we wanted to look at was what is the current state of tourism in Nederland? And it's kind of wild right now, right? We have a lot of people coming up here from all parts of the state and country. Based on where we are as a town, just kind of placed on the peak to peak, we work well as a day or weekend getaway for people in state, but also we're a destination spot for people coming out of state. Probably seen a lot of out of state license plates coming through. So we do have an increasing number of people that come in to town every year, especially since 2020, when we saw a huge influx of people that just wanted to get outside and Nederland was close to Boulder. It's in between Estes and Blackhawk. It's just a nice kind of middle point. Makes this a good gateway both to other areas or other towns, but also to trailheads and parks. In 2020, we saw an estimated 6,600 vehicles coming through town a day. That's a lot. And that is estimated to go up to 7,300 by 2030. And that doesn't seem like a huge number, but when you factor in the size of our town, our one road, 900 extra vehicles makes a huge difference. So we also realized that we don't really have a budget for this, so we needed to kind of figure something out. That is where my current position as public engagement manager kind of came from. The CTO was originally looking at having just a full tourism management position, but that didn't really work with just our size as a town and everything else we needed to do. So we tried to roll that into things that I was already doing and things I was planning on doing and create a role that kind of fit Nederland's needs for the moment. So with all that in mind, our current approach to tourism is pretty reactionary. We see a lot of people come in, we try to let people know, try to take advantage of larger events or things that might be passing through. But we haven't really tried to get ahead of that. That has been fine for now, but as we see more people coming through, we want to try to stem that, put in a structured management plan, and that way we're not letting tourism define how we move forward as a town, but rather we have the community defining how we want to showcase tourism in our town. Yeah. So the first part of that is to create a DMO, that stands for Destination Marketing and Management Organization, who would work as the center point to talk with the community, with local stakeholders, to coordinate with other groups and organizations that have a vested interest in tourism, and just be the point contact. In the size that we are as a town, town of Nederland itself would work as the DMO to work with local businesses and nonprofits, other organizations, to get that structure in place. And here is kind of what our DMO would look like. So it would start, like with most of our boards, from the top down. So we have the board of trustees, and then directly under that would be Miranda, then myself, and then from there that would go out to our visitor center and any other community projects that might be happening that we can connect with. You'll also see on this graph marketing consultants, and that's right now going to be other government entities for grants and things like that, since we, again, don't really have a budget to work with. But it can also mean working with other community organizations like the library or Teens Inc. or Wild Bear or something that might be wanting to do more tourism-based efforts. You'll also see on here that my position would be a liaison to a proposed tourism advisory subcommittee, probably spearheaded by the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Advisory Board, because it would look more outside of Nederland as a whole instead of just on specific areas of it. And it just felt more accurate for it to fall under their jurisdiction than, say, DDA or the Sustainability Advisory Board. And that subcommittee would be made up of about 7 people or so. That would meet probably on a quarterly basis, similar to the Board of Zoning adjustment, but mostly to kind of just recap various seasons, see how tourism was like that, what we can do to plan for the next season, at which point I would execute their suggestions. Ideally, it would be made up of members from all around Nederland, including local business owners, nonprofits, other outdoor stakeholders. I would love to have someone that does a lot of events to have that kind of insight, and someone representing different groups and age brackets, like youth groups and things like that. So they would support me in any initiatives we have, including the management grant branding initiative that we are currently working on doing an RFP for, the Do Nederland Right campaign, which I will get into here in a little bit, and the creative asset shoot when that comes up as well. So we would also be working on integrating tourism into other parts of our town, as we see that it fits. The first step of that is to go over Envision 2030 from a few years back. And since tourism wasn't really a core focus of that, we realized that it fits really well into a lot of those other areas that were core focuses, such as community engagement, economic development, and sustainability. And you'll see why here in a second when we go over the resident surveys that came up. Or I may not have put the resident surveys in here, but basically what came from that was we saw kind of an overwhelming response that we wanted to show off our local culture and showcase that we are a environmental town that are kind of stewards of the land around us. It's been kind of expressed that we are a town within a park, and kind of approaching it from there, and really pushing the idea of responsible tourism while showcasing our identity as a town. With that in mind, what came from that was the CTO created a Do Nederland Right campaign. This is all just kind of a tentative idea of different branding that we can use. None of this is set in stone, and it is based off of their own Do Colorado Right campaign that they created during COVID-19 to educate people about travel restrictions, that later expanded into talking about visitor behavior such as backcountry safety, car-free transportation, and local fire bans. So they've made a number of these campaigns for other tourism partners and smaller municipalities. So this is just part of that. Okay, here's the whole stakeholder thing. So the first part of what they did was during our various meetings and the destination assessment was to identify any of the priority impacts that we as a community thought were really important. This included meeting with our community partners, the surveys I mentioned, and we did a few one-on-ones with area land managers like Boulder County and Eldora, because even though they're not in town themselves, they are highly impacted by the tourism that comes through here. So it just felt right to get them involved as well. So during the resident sentiment survey, we got a lot of good feedback. These are just some of the questions that we asked, but they really came down to our town's natural beauty, the public lands that surround us, that we are a centralized location for the peak-to-peak area, and that we are kind of a small, authentic, and unique community. And we want to kind of showcase that everyone is welcome, that we respect nature and everything around us, that we are a small town and that going car free is very recommended, and that we have a cool arts and culture scene. Similarly, from the tourism stakeholder side of that, which include businesses and nonprofits and other community organizations, we asked them about like what were their concerns and priorities. And so we saw a lot about rising costs and retaining staff, supply chain disruptions, things like that. And they also came back saying that we should be focusing on promoting local businesses and activities, and promoting shoulder and off-season stuff, while also encouraging that same responsible tourism behavior that we saw in the resident survey. So it was really cool to see a lot of similarities between resident and tourism stakeholder. When we talked to land managers, there was a lot of talk about the risk of wildfire, trash being left, and just kind of an overall wanting people to obey the rules a bit more when it came to just safety and parking, things like that. So the themes that came from that they put into this Do Nederland Right campaign was to do Ned car free, get to know us, respect our rules, be careful with fire, pick up after yourself, and stick to the trails and keep wildlife wild. They also included a very comprehensive messaging matrix, which is a giant spreadsheet of different ways to get this word out, which I can also share. I can drop a link in the chat as well after this is done. But because it's way too long to kind of go through here, but it is very helpful. And they also gave us a bunch of other different media pieces that we can use as well if we see fit. I wouldn't act on any of these or the logo or anything without first putting together that subcommittee to talk about, is this the branding we want? And so far from what I've seen, nobody is a huge fan of this name or logo, so I'd probably change it to make it a bit more Ned-centric and not just a kind of a generic Colorado thing. So that is what came from Reimagined Destinations. The next steps would be to work on convening that tourism subcommittee and just go over our initial projects, such as our town branding initiative and that Do Nederland Right campaign, and also exploring other options for support from the Colorado Tourism Office. I've actually already applied for Destination Blueprint. It's similar to this, but it kind of takes the work we've already done through Reimagined Destinations and expands upon it to hopefully create a more structured management system. And I would also love to have a tourism management plan that we could reference at the end of that. There's also different marketing grants that we could look at, and GovCon, which is a tourism governor's meeting that happens in September, which I'm going to look into getting a scholarship to attend that as well. And then after we kind of figure out what we want our Do Nederland Right campaign to look like, then we would start pushing that out. All right, that is my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. I listened at the BOT meeting, and that was much more concise.
I've had a chance to repeat it a few times, so yeah, it's gone down a bit.
I got you. Okay, well, I'll just open it up to any of the planning commissioners that would like to have questions. Go ahead.
This is Steve. Peter, thank you for that presentation. Could you expand a little bit on the timeline when you expect things to happen?
Yeah, definitely. So first, I have to kind of juggle the events we have happening. So July is not a complete wash, but it's going to be very busy. My hope is to go back before ProSab either next month or in August to start the process of getting a subcommittee together. And then after that, we'd probably meet for our first meeting in September. And as far as yeah.
No, and follow-up question is, so how long of a partnership do you see this being with the tourism board? Is this like a long-term, 5-year, 10-year thing, or is it? I guess I'm a little confused as to how far out it goes.
Mm-hmm. Haven't really discussed that yet. Personally, I would like to see it be a long-term thing, as there's no reason to see why tourism would magically vanish from our town anytime soon. So, part of that would be setting up a kind of a structure of like how long does someone want to serve on that. But yeah, personally, I would like to see it be like a 5-year thing, just because it's meeting quarterly. To just be around long enough to go over past seasons and trends and things.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Hi, thank you, Peter. This is Linda for the presentation. It was very informative. And I do appreciate that you say Nederland and it's not just Ned. I think it's important that we identify us as Nederland. I know this is a far-reaching question, but is CDOT working with the town on the traffic end of the tourism?
We would want to partner with them, definitely. Currently, we have nothing in place for that, as we just ended this program. But one of the things that came out, especially when talking to land managers, was to be connecting with other outside organizations around town, and CDOT would definitely be part of that. I definitely think that any traffic things, we would have to partner with them, and because they would be a big part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, this is Jim. I just was wondering what it talks about on the do Nederland right themes there, do Ned car free. Is this going to be tied in more with some of the trails and open space and a parking plan? Because if we're going to do Nederland car free, we probably have to have a central location for everybody to park and all the things that not to beat on the desk too much about my parking subcommittee presentation, where there would be trails and signage and we would be able to kind of move around the town without a car. Could you explain or expand on that a little bit? Yeah,
so that does come from the fact that we do have parking and traffic issues, and it would tie into a lot of that. These are just the themes that would be part of what we want to share. But kind of like what I touched on, tying this back into Vision 2030, we would want to tie it back into those different presentations and subcommittees as well. So there's nothing concrete with that, but it would definitely come up a lot more once we were tackling parking and signage and things more. So it would tie into like the wayfinding thing that is happening as well.
Okay, so there's an acknowledgement at least that we're not really set up to be car-free Ned with trails and
Correct.
being able to get around currently, but that's a goal.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
I just had something, and it may be a little bit nitpicky at this stage, but something I'm curious if you've thought of, Peter, is from a tourism standpoint and information for visitors, we have this CDOT large information sign right at our town, I don't know,
Oh yeah, right,
the entry.
yeah,
Yeah.
right at the "Welcome to Netherlands" sign. It's
Yeah.
blocking
And
like
it kind of
half of
takes
it.
over it. Yeah. And it's in front of it. It'd be really great to see some investment in the town to put up, I don't want to replace the existing, town welcome sign, but something maybe right behind it that was digital that could pass some of that information to replace that CDOT sign would be, I think it would look better, it'd be more presentable. It could even give more information than what the CDOT sign does. And I think it's just a better, way to introduce people as they come into the town for the first time.
Yeah,
So it's
I
just something I kind of
totally
wanted to bring
agree.
up. Okay,
I
cool.
totally agree with that.
It'd
I've
be neat to see
actually been
that in the
trying to.
plans.
I've been trying to get them to at least move the sign so it's not completely blocking the
Yeah.
Netherlands sign, because there's a lot of different banners and things that are going up recently that are hard to see now
Hmm.
because of it. Uh, but yeah,
Okay.
that
And it's
we
happy you're thinking about it too.
yeah
That's great.
we have another tourism grant that
Mm-hmm.
we're in the early stages of focusing on branding, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that came up with that was signage, especially for coming into town. Uh, so we actually have a meeting about that on Friday. So I'm going to bring that up
Okay.
because I like that idea.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
I will chime in and say that sign that CDOT put there was providing great screening cover for the police officer that was sitting behind it, writing tickets to people as they're heading out of town today. So it's at least contributing to Boulder County revenue. Go ahead, Roger.
Town revenue, that's town revenue now. Can I speak up, Jim?
Please do.
I want to maybe piggyback on the car free. I understand you're just getting started. I just wanted to say that, families fly into DIA, they rent a car, they come up here, or they're doing their 10-day weekend from Kansas, drive in here. So they're gonna have their car. So I would suggest that, that we emphasize while you're in town, here's how you can get around town without your car. But I think it's to try to just make a statement car free while someone's here for a week, 10 days, they want to go to Brainerd Lake. If you even want to go to Caribou Open Ranch Open Space, I mean, there's no way you can get there without a car. You can't get to Brainerd Lake, so there's all these things. So, but I certainly think that the idea of when you're in town, here's what you can get around town without having, to drive 2 blocks, which quite often we do when we're on vacation and you get used to that thing. So, to emphasize, just breaking that little cycle of, walking around town, not going 2 blocks and finding yet another parking space, as opposed to, how are you going to get to Brainerd Lake? So that's really the thought I had in that. And the other one was that, your subcommittee, that's fine to have that, but I would say that getting stakeholders like the balls at BNF seem like they always get left out. And I know it's a tough conversation with them, but trying to welcome, BNF and Dan Ball to give his feedback. Certainly the hotel would be a huge stakeholder to have part of the committee. And during the summer, you never go into Ace Hardware without seeing someone in there asking, where do I get my camping permit? Where do I get my fishing license and stuff like that? So actually having the town business leaders giving us feedback, I think is a no-brainer.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you touched on a good thing is some of this messaging from Dune Ireland, right? Like Dune Ed Carfree might not specifically be what we want to use, because this was created by people that are in Denver. They don't really know exactly what's going on in town a lot, so it might be like more beneficial for us to rebrand that in a way that works better for us. Maybe it is like focusing on Netherlands walkability, or here's how you can get to the trailheads from Boulder without a car if you're looking to do that. Things, not necessarily like don't take your car up here or anything like that. But yeah, so these are very generalized, and yeah, it's very worth it to find ways that fit our town better.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions for Peter?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Tim Duggan here. My main thought is just like we have so much tourism already, as you noted at the beginning of the presentation, and just without even trying, it's just going to keep increasing. So I think the more we devote any resources and funding that we have in this arena towards just management, like we're talking about, I think is going to be more beneficial than just promotion, which I don't think is necessary. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah. Then that's kind of one of the key points I've been trying to like put up front whenever I give this.
Yeah,
It's just like,
in your presentation that seemed clear. So I was just reiterating.
Cool.
I think that's good.
Mike Dye.
Sorry, Peter.
Oh yeah.
The $20,000 funding for like the promotional video shoot.
Mhm.
I guess that's kind of like a big thing that just seems unnecessary. Like I'd rather use $20,000 for management of the tourism that we already have and is going to come without even trying. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's possible, but divert those resources at all or what. But
no, unfortunately, we don't get the money. They basically bring in the production crew for that. So I've been looking at it more as like an added benefit more than anything else, because we don't really have a big say in what we can do with that funding. But we can always find uses for images or videos and things. And
it could be a big production about moose attacks or something like that.
there you go. Yeah.
Hey, safely interacting with the local wildlife. That might
totally.
be.
I mean,
Wildlife Wild. That's one of those.
I think there's a lot of things we
themes.
can use that for that aren't necessarily like come to Netherlands. It's great.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Great point. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
Exactly what you said, that don't need to necessarily attract more tourism, but management. So that was well said to me. And also, I guess with the $20,000 grant, if we do have control over how it's used, and could be education about wildlife, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Could also use it as a way to educate people about wayfinding. Like, hey, here's where you can park. Like, take a little quick time-lapse trip down First Street and around Chipeta Park and back to see where you can go, and kind of guide that way. So yeah, this is great. Good work. Good start, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else before we move on? I would also agree with what you said, Peter, that like you said, if they do good production value stuff of our town, that's valuable and is evergreen and can be used in a lot of different areas. If we get control of that, the intellectual property of that, and are able to use those images how we'd like to use them. So I can see that being very beneficial. I know Steve asked this, but I might have missed it. How long for this part, the $20,000 creative asset production shoot, what kind of time frame roughly do you think that might happen in?
So we are on a wait list. They had some issues organizing that. So we are looking at least 18 to 24 months out before our slot comes up. And then we would decide like what time of the year to do this.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that might work out good then. By then, maybe we'll
Yeah, exactly.
have a few of our things, in place, the wayfinding and some parking, and the, car-free Nederland might actually be plausible then. But okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation, Peter, and all your hard work and the many hats that you're wearing. Not very many people know how much stuff you're doing behind the scenes, but we sure appreciate it all.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Britt, do we want to go on to the next item, informational item?
Yeah, I believe, Miranda, did you want me to present that, or did you want me to have Sam and?
I can do it. I'm not feeling so great, so I'm limiting my interaction. But tonight you have the ProSab board represented by Sam Ovett and Jesse Sievers, who wanted to come talk with the Planning Commission as a part of the Nederland public process about their proposal for the pump track. This is in kind of design phase, and so it's really just gathering feedback from the respective boards. Nothing you're specifically voting on tonight, but I do know that ProSab is looking for a nod of 4 that the Planning Commission feels like they're going in the right direction. So Sam, I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I do want to say real quick, I've had the pleasure of being at around a couple of meetings recently, all meetings of all the commissions recently, and I'm excited about what the work that Peter's doing. So just a little note there, because it's been really cool to see that develop. As far as the pump track goes, the main thing here is that we're looking at putting a pump track at Chipeta Park. I'll pull up a picture just for clarification of what we're talking about here, share it with everybody. We're in the design phase, as Miranda said, or like getting into that phase. And the main thing we've been going through the boards at the moment is getting the 2 different things. One is, are you in support of one? And then where's the funding going to come from for the design portion alone, not for the build portion. And so for the design portion, that is currently coming from the DDA. And so that's where, Miranda, is there anything specific that people should know about that? Just because it's in this like final phases.
Yeah, no, the DDA did authorize up to $10,000 for
cool.
ProSab to work on the design. So that, as Sam noted, that is the next step here. And then yet another round of public feedback will happen once we're actually in possession of that design.
Right. And so our goal with this design, just so everybody's really clear, is that we get shovel ready plans essentially that allow us to then go out and raise the money, and because we're not asking the town for money at the moment. And so we're going to go out and raise the money to build this pump track, and then that way we can bring it back, get it built, and these plans help us do 2 things. 1, get everybody on the community on board with like the final design, and 2, have plans that we can go take to raise money with. Jesse, do you want to add anything to that before I pull up a picture of a pump track, just so everybody's on the same page?
No, that's a great intro. Thanks, Sam.
Cool. Let me pull up a picture. I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're looking at here. And so 1 second. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. So for clarification, we're looking at Chipeta Park, and this is the rough plan. It wouldn't impact this sidewalk over here, just to be clear. And then this access has to be maintained. That's one of the specifications. But this is to give you a very good understanding of the general place that it's going to be. And then this is a rough shot of the Valmont pump track down in Boulder. And then this is a picture of another pump track built by the same company. They're kind of the premier, the ones that we are most excited about doing the design they've actually been up here and looked at the site. They've done pretty much all the pump tracks in our surrounding area. I think it's safe to say. Is that right, Jesse? Is there anybody else? They're like the big player at this point. And they've done these amazing designs that are really fun to ride. So this is an example of one. And I just wanted everybody to see that so we know what we're talking about. Any questions before I move on from this stage, just for a clarification standpoint?
I did have one.
Yeah,
from
of course.
Design standpoint, and this again maybe a little nitpicky, but I think
Go
it's
for it.
it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna
all
be
ears.
fun. I think it's gonna be great. The only thing I'm thinking about is sight lines to the actual playground. Some of the other, samples had some higher elements of the track,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool. And obviously, you
Like
want
the
to have
big,
those
like the
elements.
ramps and stuff like that.
Yeah, or in the middle, some higher,
Sure.
elements. And, when you pull into the parking lot, if you're not from the town or if you're visiting or whatever,
Yeah.
you pull in the parking lot, if you can't see the playground that's there, it may deter people from parking, getting out, going and checking out,
Oh,
where their
right.
kids can play,
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you have talked to the designers about, you know, high and low elements of the track, and if they've really nailed that in, or if you maybe could consider thinking about sight lines from the parking to the actual playground.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think that's a great idea. It's something that we haven't considered specifically, like that specific consideration, but I do think it's a great one. It's like you do want to be able to know when you pull up to the park, hey, there's more than just a pump track here. You can go do other things, and that makes it even
Yep.
more inviting. So I'm definitely going to take a note of that, and we'll just bring
Okay.
that up to them. And then the other cool thing they do with the plans that they do is they actually
Mhm.
do a community. They kind of manage a community process as well that we help guide, and so
Okay.
we can really gather all those, like, hey, have you thought about this little thing, or I've seen this feature. Someone might be like, I really like this
Yeah.
feature, can we do that? So
Cool. That'd be
but I'll
great.
just make a note of that specifically because I think it's really valid and makes a lot of sense. So thank you for bringing it
Okay.
up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions at this stage?
Yeah. Hi,
Yeah.
Sam. Hi, Jesse. This is Mike Dye.
Hey.
You said that I think you said it was this is the location of the pump track. Has that been decided and approved, or is that still to be decided? Like, I
Yeah.
know that's the recommendation, but yeah.
For sure. So I'm going to speak to it for a moment and then let Jesse speak to it a little bit more.
Right.
But essentially, we did walk a bunch of different sites to look at, like, where could bike parks of different styles be, where could pump tracks potentially be, and this location was the one that Nick Dunn was most excited about. And Jesse, I'll let you kind of take it from there for just a moment and speak to that for just a little bit more, and I think that'll help answer the question. And
Okay.
and we can discuss this just for a moment too. We're open to it, but this is like, there's not a lot of other great spots. And Jesse, you want to talk about kind of the access and pieces like that for the community? Oh, I think you're muted, Jesse.
Yeah, so good question, Mike. And yeah, as you guys may or may not recall, there was an effort to get a pump track in town back in 2019 or so, and that was being proposed for a location down around Gersio Field and kind of where we're looking at the Barker Meadows Park down there.
I
And
remember
that didn't go over. It wasn't favorable to the community, and but so this is kind of another effort to, because obviously there's a desire for a pump track in town, and so yeah, like Sam mentioned, we did go around and look at a variety of different spots, and this was the spot that Nikki was most in favor of. And there's a couple of reasons why. I think the main reason that Nikki was supportive of it, that really stuck with me when she was kind of pitching it to those of us who had gathered there, that were looking at trying to put some bike infrastructure in town. What stuck with me was a story that Nikki was telling about how she sees kids down there on the basketball court working with their balance bikes quite often, and has often just kind of thought of, like, that step one is to learn basic balance, and then wouldn't it be great if step 2 there was a little bit more advanced features for them to progress and to graduate from, the basic balance bike to some, like a bicycle playground or a pump track. And and then Nikki also mentioned that she doesn't see a lot of use there. She's, keeping her eye on the park quite a bit, and she doesn't see a lot of use with that particular section of the park where we've proposed that's where that would go. And that also the sprinkler and the irrigation system is in a state of disrepair, needs to be overhauled. So that area is really in need of a rebuild anyway. And and it kind of just it's already an established use of that land essentially as a park and as a recreational facility for the community. And then we've looked at, there's been recently some suggestions put forward to explore the area by the ice skating rink. And we have kind of looked at that area. Chris Pelletier was in favor of that area as well initially. However, kind of thinking more about it and looking at it, there's a number of reasons why that's not as good of an area. And so I could go into those, or basically just the short answer to your question, or the shorter answer to your question, is just that we have looked at a lot of some of the other spots and feel that this is the best area for the pump track.
Jesse, let me jump in and speak to one more point there when you're ready.
Go ahead.
The ice skating, one big one is like, if you're a little kid, that's a huge hill to ride up from town to get there and go on your own to ride the track. And then the other aspect too is one of the things we envision here with the fact that it's more in town, because the ice skating rink really is like, it's not in town, it feels more out of town. It's its own destination. Is you can drop the kids off, they can ride the pump track, you can go walk in town and get a beer. If you want to do that, that's for both folks that live in town and people visiting. So it just makes it overall more attractive to the whole community and helps people encourage spending that money in town and engaging with the local businesses. So that's something we're also really excited about as a dual purpose, recreation and bringing folks who live here, like to spend a little more time in town properly hanging out, and then also people visiting after that tourism conversation. Hey, maybe we'll go for a ride on the trails, we'll go grab a beer and grab a beer and a bite to eat and shop around a little bit, and then the kids can ride the pump track, right? Or we'll ride the pump track. Like, it's going to be pretty rad and exciting for all ages. So it's not just for kids, for sure. Does that help, Mike? Happy to answer and sort of talk through the other aspects of it.
I was actually, that was an excellent in-depth response. My question was more actually intended, like, has this been decided upon and approved? I get it, there's the ND recommendation, but okay.
No, and this is all real preliminary. I mean, we haven't actually created a design yet. So, but that is where we're looking to create the design at this point.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we'd still need to go through public hearing, go back to the BOT.
Gotcha.
Be voted upon, the permit approved, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot more public engagement ahead, including the design process would also engage the public further. So
awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Hey, Sam, are you planning on going? Sam, were you planning on going through the actual presentation here that shows the benefits, and does NDDA endorse the Trump track? Because it seems like we're missing a lot of information. Those of us who maybe didn't get a chance to read through the packet with every single little detail, I was kind of hoping you'd spread a little more information here.
I'm happy to do that. Yeah, we got sort of pulled into that next direction. Let me go ahead and walk through that presentation, because I do think it's helpful in the packet that's there. So let me pull that up 1 second. So I'm just getting to it.
Thanks, buddy. I feel like maybe some of the questions might get answered based on just presenting some of this information.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Do you want to go through which piece? I can go through either sort of the presentation or the aim, because they're both kind of in depth. You want me to go through the presentation portion?
If you would start where it says benefits, the slide that says benefits, and those next 3, 4 slides, 5 slides there that have a lot of information on there.
Yeah, happy to. All right, can everybody see my screen again?
Yes,
Yes.
I can.
So let's talk about the benefits of the pump track. And essentially we've got a recreational outlet. It's great because it's really good for both young and old. So it's kind of like the whole spectrum. If you can ride a bike, you can have fun on it. You can go fast, you can go slow. It's really wonderful in that way. It's a safe, fun way to exercise, get out. It's an opportunity for families to spend time together. We are excited about the potential to boost the local economy. Do I think it's going to be like the next great thing that brings everybody to Nederland? No. But do I think that it adds to the cocktail of like this amazing set of recreational opportunities that we have? Yes. As far as being inclusive, one of the great things is that on a pump track, you're not just limited to bikes. If you've got a skateboard, a bike, a scooter, a wheelchair, anything with wheels, you can ride it. We get a quality of life bump anytime you add something like this. It's exciting. I'm personally excited about it. I mean, I'll travel to places with a pump track as well. Just when I'm visiting, I'll be like, oh, do they have a pump track that we can ride while we're in town? And it also provides something actually that isn't exactly listed here. It's sort of listed quietly and socialized, but it provides this third place where as a community, we're running into each other and we're creating more opportunities to run into people in our local community, which is really cool. As far as does the NDDA endorse a pump track in Chipeta Park, I'll run through this one because I think that helps people understand it. The 2017 master plan really does support the creation of this kind of asset. We're looking at things where it recommends improving the existing parks in the downtown area, which this does, including Chipeta Park, and expanding it to include more amenities and programming. We have emphasis on the importance of recreational opportunities to attract visitors and residents to the downtown area. We kind of touched on that and talked about it. Plan recommends improving and expanding existing parks, again, including Chipeta Park, to include more amenities. So this is where, that's a natural thing that we can do. It's a very popular thing to do at the moment around Colorado and the rest of the country. And then how the importance of putting things in there, sustainable, green infrastructure, this idea of stuff that can make the town more resilient. I think whether or not this mitigates the impacts of climate change, I think you could argue that either way, but the point is that it's fun and it's a positive, healthy outlet that we have. And I think that's a wonderful thing. As far as the proposed size, we're looking at 10 to 15,000 square feet of track surface. We looked at the location already. One very cool thing is we're looking at the designers also for a particular reason, because they're able to design the pump track to what are called UCI standards, which essentially means we could host official pump track races. And so if you live in town and you want to race on the pump track circuit, which is a pretty big race circuit, like Red Bull has events, it's well known, and you can sign up and start participating. One of the cool things is we can host those events here, and you also know you're riding on a track that is certified for that. Our upfront cost after design stuff is in the range of 200 to 500,000. Obviously, that's a big number, but we can go kind of crazy with all the different design features that can be added onto these, or we can keep it pretty simple. So that's something that Jesse and I are spearheading, the approach to raising the money after the design process for the actual plan and park itself. And so that's just what that looks like. And then the maintenance plan, one of the beauties of this, maintenance is super minimal. It's asphalt. So we're looking at just occasional asphalt patchwork, and it's not specialized. asphalt patchwork. It's like, if you have the capability to fix a patch in a road, you can fix this thing, and anything over 3 inches needs to be patched. It's sort of the rule of thumb, and it's very easy to maintain. And so that's one of the reasons we want this hard surface as part of the process, so that we can use it. And it's like, as soon as the snow comes out or the sun comes out on a snowy day, afterwards it melts out, you can use it right away. So that's exciting. I'll pause for just a moment, ask if there's any questions, and then I'll keep moving on. We're not too much more here. Any questions? Okay, cool. I'll just pop it over to the screen of everybody so I can see you. So budget stuff, what we're looking at, this is sort of the range of the design relative to the construction budget that we're looking at and the square footage. So we're looking at that $9,000 to $10,000 design range, so that really Jesse and I are shooting for that medium. And then if we wanted to, if we get into the design process, we go, wow, there's all these amazing things that the community wants additionally, Jesse and I will go out and raise, more money to get those designs to a point where we can do all that extra stuff. So build considerations. So one of the things that is a consideration is the actual landscaping selection around it. So it's like, and that's something that input can be put in on. I think in general, we're looking a lot of times to Nikki, since she's managing the parks, to guide that aesthetic and make sure that it's in line with other aesthetic things that are being done in town as we move forward. We're looking at things like, how many do we add these other features, like a wall ride, other things of that nature. Density of the track, is it longer and faster? Is it more bermed and quick? Those kind of style questions. And that's great, because as we go through this design process, the community will get to give a lot of input on that as what they're excited about seeing in this track. And then, there's other work around this in the design considerations around, like, do we need environmental studies? One of the great things about having Jesse on board with this is, as you all know, he runs High Performance Earthworks. He's doing this stuff on a daily basis. So, and he knows our area better than anybody when it comes to digging in the ground and improving the landscape with these kind of features. Some more visuals of tracks. I'll run through these. I'll open up for some more questions. This is whose is this one? This is the Erie, Colorado one. I think theirs is open now, if I recall. Stapleton. So you can see there's different track styles. This is like more condensed. This one's a little slightly more open. This one's fairly open. So there's different styles. This is the Boulder one. If anybody wants to go ride it, they're super fun. This is down at Valmont. And the other thing I'll say is, just to be super clear, because I had this come up and I was a little surprised. I'm going to stop sharing for the moment so I can see y'all. This is something that's free, right? So it's like, once it's built and funded, this is free. There's not a entry fee to use it. So just like the skate park, anybody can go use it. I want to just be super clear on that. Is any Jim, does that help, do you think?
Yes, I think that gave us a much better overview. And so I think there's probably a slew of questions now that you've kind of gone through some of that stuff, and I'll just leave it open, and commissioners, just go ahead. Well, if not, I'll be happy to open it up with the question. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
This is Steve.
Yeah.
So Jesse, you mentioned that you looked at a number of other sites. Could you just expand a little bit on some of the other sites? I know you mentioned the one up by the ice rink, but that's all you mentioned. So could you say a little bit more, and also maybe enlighten some of our newer commissioners about the previous attempt and what happened there? That might be helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So yeah, really, I guess it's not an extensive list. So I would just count Gersio Field as one of the initial sites that was considered and shot down. and then the ice skating rink area, which Nikki has not been in favor of, and then this one. So it's really just 3, and there's not really a good there hasn't been a good recommendation or any other good proposed location that has come up in my awareness as yet. So it's just the 3 spots that have really been looked at this point. So that's
an extensive list of other locations where we talked about putting in bike oriented features that are more in what I would call like the downhill category of bike features, but they're separate because that requires gradient, whereas the pump track we really want to be working with a flat area to begin with.
And then, yeah, as far as the Gercio field and the previous effort to get a pump track together, I was not really involved at that point, and I can't really speak to the details of that earlier conversation. But I know that there was a lot of pushback from people who wanted to preserve that area for music festivals and things that it's been historically used for. And I don't know if anyone else here remembers any of that public debate, but I wasn't tuned into that at the time. So I kind of picked up the ball more recently, and I've been running with it. But that initial go around and effort to get a pump track in town, somebody else who may be here now could feel free to chime in on that if they have any more details on it.
And I'm in the same boat as far as that goes.
I don't remember the specifics. I do know that it just sort of, there was some excitement at first, and then it kind of just kind of went away. I don't know whether it was funding issues or something else, but I never heard any backlash on that site per se as being one of the causes that it just kind of went away. So maybe Roger remembers something about that. I don't know.
You know, Steve, I really don't remember. So I want to go on record and say, oh yeah, it was this way. I think it was just part of the overall group was planning the park, and my impression, which this is what you should check on, is that then all of a sudden they kind of just threw that out there pretty quick, and there wasn't a lot of planning, maybe like you're doing right now, trying to get all the stakeholders involved. But my memory was that it just kind of got thrown out there real quick, and there was a pretty big, probably a very small backlash, but you know, from a small amount of people, but that it just got dropped, I think.
Hey, Jesse, your background noise is really overpowering us.
Yeah, I'll mute.
Thank you, buddy.
Do you, Jim, should we go around like a few more comments, or you want to finish? Do you want to finish up the presentation?
I think that's all Sam had. We're at the questions phase right now. Is that right, Sam?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. We're at this phase where it's like, this is the location, these are the benefits we're excited about, and then now let's do the design, engage the community on what kind of features they want to see there, and then they're technically it is up in the air for, you know, it could go somewhere else, but there's just not a lot of good other spots that we've seen so far. I mean, Gercio would be a great spot, but it's just so controversial that we didn't really try and pursue it too much because it seems like everybody wants to do everything there, and so we're just like, well, let's go put it somewhere that seems easier to get it done, that everybody's generally on board with. And there's parking already, which is nice.
Okay, I appreciate that. I am curious, you talk about the usage. Can you give us I thought I remember there being some kind of a survey. Could you give us some numbers or info
Yeah.
on what kind of the usage numbers or the feedback was on what we thought the usage would be?
Yeah. So what we did, actually, Jesse and I put together a Google Form survey for people to say whether or not they were in support of the pump track, and we were kind of blown away. Do you have the current numbers, Jesse, offhand? I know you recently presented them, or close to them.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to kind of breeze through those really quickly. We got 185 responses. Of those 185, you know, everyone there so basically they were all saying they represented a household of 2 or 3 or 4. There was 18 of those that represented only one. 108, so essentially 60% of those live here in town full time. 5 of them live here part time. 60 people live near Ned, but outside of Ned, outside of town, and then 23 of them visit. And so, and then there was a lot of testimonials or additional comments that people gave in support. And then 169 of those people said that they would like to contribute in some way. They would volunteer with construction. They would show up at public meetings and support, enjoy riding the pump track or fundraising efforts as well. So 72% said they would help with fundraising. And yeah, people left their emails, and some people submitted some testimonial videos just saying they're in support of this. So that was kind of our initial poll on the general public to see what kind of support there was out there in the community. And that was something that ProSab really asked us to do at the outset before they kind of endorsed this and said they would like to support and launch this effort. So that's what we did.
Can I ask if, so the questions and the individuals that are like within the packet, there's obviously a lot of support there. Is that the form that you were talking about? Is that the results of the form? Do you know to, like,
Let me double check the packet, but I believe it is.
okay.
The support for the
On
Nederland pump track
page-
responses.
Starts on page 51.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
The support for it. I'll
Yeah.
just share the screen real quick so we're all looking at the same thing.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, we were very excited about seeds, of course, because this is all the support. This is the name, family members, relationship, comments, and then ways that they were interested in helping. And so, and we're very excited about this. I mean, the total representation is around like 400 or 600 people. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, we were pretty surprised.
Yeah.
Apparently that's you know, that includes people outside of the actual town as well. They're just nearby.
Yeah.
I mean, including myself. I'm up on Ridge Road, you know. So I'm
still
technically not in town.
Which they
yeah,
should be
exactly.
Surveys like that. Absolutely. I do feel obligated to point out that the survey doesn't include people that didn't support the pump track.
You're right. It was a petition for support, not a.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that helps. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a good thing to point out, Mike.
Okay. Other questions by commissioners?
Go for it, Timmy.
Yeah, thanks. I've got a few comments and questions. First of all, I am super in support of having a pump track. My son and I would definitely use it. Cheetah Park a lot as it is to play soccer and stuff. We just did that last night. I think the location is great. The only factor I think would be just planning around the future. If we have the second bridge, you know, if we needed access around the pump track, around the park to get to that, just sort of keeping that in mind, which I'm sure would be no problem. It's kind of that sort of road is already there, so I think there's plenty of room. My only concern is like $500,000 is a lot of money. And if there's like a grant and this money just kind of appeared out of nowhere, that'd be awesome. I'd have zero problems with it. But if this is money that's being diverted from elsewhere, it could be used elsewhere. I just don't know if it's like the highest priority of the use of $500,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I want to be clear, like I'm totally in support of
cool.
It's just where the money's coming from, you know?
Yeah. It's gonna poof appear out of midair. So no, Jesse and I are gonna go raise that money. We're not asking town for money or any of the other like funds that are going towards other things. And we did that pretty strategically and intentionally so that we could move forward on it, because neither of us think that, town funds make a ton of sense. Those funds need to be used for other things. The bike community is huge in Colorado. There's tons of grants. There should be no reason we can't raise this money. And the other thing that's really great is the folks that are doing the design, they've been involved in the process with all these other communities nearby us. And so they've already been guiding us on, hey, here's where they got their money. Here's where they got their money, this grant, that fundraising approach. So I say that jokingly, like, it's going to poof appear out of midair, but it's going to poof appear out of midair. It's not going to come from town budget.
I imagine
it's a good question.
Sort of Tony Hawk Foundation kind of funding for stuff like that has to exist. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
My other question, we were talking about youth. Some of the ones you referenced in the report are Erie and Stapleton, and these are all kind of a lot bigger population bases. Are there any other, I'm trying to think of any other sort of small mountain town examples that has something similar, if you guys know of any. I don't know if like Salida has
Leadville.
something. I don't know. Leadville has one?
Yeah.
Cool.
Leadville's got one. So
yeah,
I think that's, funnily enough, like maybe as close a comparison in a way, quite high up and a little bit smaller population of actual in-town residential units.
I think Leadville, if geographically is kind of a bigger town, but I think youth-wise, it would probably be really similar.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of like the local kids and the local community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's actually probably pretty close. And my wife, her aunt and uncle used to live up in Leadville. They're down in the Gunnison area now. But so I've actually spent a bit of time up there and seen that aspect of it. And I think it's actually like not too far off from a comparison. The only difference being that we do have, essentially Boulder down the hill that, hey, it's hot out. It's nice and cool up there. Maybe we want to go ride the pump track up higher and
one more thing to do up here. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good questions.
Thank you for all that. Yeah.
So while we're talking about the pump track in Leadville, I mean, environmentally, it's also at least as harsh as Nederland.
Right.
If you haven't already, it might be a good idea to contact the people that built it and see what kind of maintenance that they have to perform and what kind of difficulties they ran into, because that'll be a much better benchmark than any pump track that's down below.
Jesse, do you want to speak to that? Because we've actually already approached that
Awesome.
pretty preliminarily, but we've that's in the consideration phase because we know, hey, our weather is like a lot harsher than other places.
Yeah.
So Jesse, I'll let you speak to that for just a sec. You're muted. Jesse, you muted. Or maybe not. Can't hear you yet.
Your microphone might have cut out there, buddy. Well, we'll come back to that. Can you talk a little bit
briefly? Essentially, these folks have designed stuff at unmute. I think he is unmuted actually. So essentially, these folks that we're working with, it's called American Ramp Company, Velo Solutions. I want to say they're out of Switzerland, and so they've done a bunch of stuff both in the U.S. and actually in the Alps and different mountain communities over there in a lot of different harsh environments. And so one of the things that we brought up to them right away when they came and walked the property up here, because they happened to be in town for the Erie stuff, was, hey, we've got a harsh environment. What's our maintenance look like? And so they feel really confident that it's not. The pollen's getting me, but that our maintenance schedule isn't going to be anything crazy compared to the other tracks, and it'll be it'll be a little bit different, but not incredibly so. That it'll factor in a way that is unexpected.
So for something like this, with this level of funding and doing a fundraising effort, I was around when we used to, community fund the fireworks show, which was, about 18 to 20,000 a year, and that was a huge effort every year. How long do you expect it to take to be able to raise these kind of funds?
So we're hoping to get the design done this summer and then be ready with, the goal is actually by next summer, because there's so much amazing money out there for the bike community, which puts it in a bit different category than the local fireworks in that way. It allows us access to bigger money. And we're in Colorado, which has a lot of the bike manufacturers and organizations. So we're really able to tap in pretty quickly to that community, which we're very excited about. And we're hopeful, this is the optimistic goal, is that we have designs this year and that next summer we are building the pump track.
Wow, very ambitious.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I will tell you that on your presentation, I only recognized that it was not going to be funded. It was going to be privately funded through donations and fundraising based on reading some stuff on Facebook. So I didn't actually see anything in the presentation. You should lead with that. You definitely should prominently talk about that.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a lot of people in the community.
Happening on Facebook, and I said I don't participate over there only because it's like it gets very negative very quickly. So it's like I just focus on working through the boards and that way working with people because it's otherwise I would just be on there all the time. But it's good to hear, and I do like that. And from the perspective going forward, that is something we will change to lead with that aspect of it, because I know that number is a big number for people to hear, and they go, well, where's that money come from? And if it's going to come from town, we want to do something else with it potentially. And I think that's a valid concern.
Yeah. Even if it would have just said in the aim, private funds will be sought, it would have, probably alleviated a lot of questions. I will tell you this, I'm also in support of that for the community. I like having the skate park over there. I think that's a very similar type activity, but I'm concerned about the location, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
My church puts on a community picnic over at the shelter every summer.
Oh, cool.
And looking at that rendering, that looks like a huge physical barrier for trafficability going across that grassy area to get over to the other side. We haul tables, chairs, 2 grills, my DJ gear, all that stuff. And if I had to try and go around the outside edges of that, that is probably my concern is the location. So when you say that, it seems like it's an easier location compared to Guercio Field, I can tell you, I think as this gets to be more publicly known, you're going to have a lot of people come out and challenge the location right there because that open green space right there is, something that's nice to have that grass. I understand there might be some, watering and systems problems that they need to look at, but the loss of that green space to put in asphalt right there at the park, my suggestion would be when you come back and people ask you that question about where your locations are, I would want to say we've exhausted every other location, and here are the barriers why those will not work, as opposed to this being the best place. Because right now, I personally want to support it, but I can't support it in that location.
Okay. Well, no, we appreciate that. And I think that's a valid concern. That makes sense. And I think it's safe to say, Jesse, you tell me if you feel otherwise. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if the mic isn't working for whatever reason. But I think it's safe to say that we are open-minded about the location. That's the one that came off the recommendation of the current, our parks manager, Nikki Dunn, and she was most excited about that. But I think it's worth putting together as we go through this aspect of the design process, a pros and cons of all the potential locations, which are, it's funny, we had someone else on another board meeting say, is it big enough? Is the location big enough for that type of thing? And that was a cool thing to hear, right? It's like, well, maybe we could make it bigger. It's a challenging thing to find a location for. And so we are open-minded about it. So I'm not closed-minded in that regard. I'll say that.
And that's good. And it helps also. Here's the other fear factor, and you addressed it to us earlier. that, okay, we've looked at some of these other locations. Dang it, I totally lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Let me just jump in. Jesse Timmy, you put a note in there that there's a path on either side of the pump track, and that is the case. That all gets maintained. That goes directly to the picnic shelter. But I mean, Jim, I've helped set up a booth, like a little table there for different events and stuff. And I hear what you're saying. It makes sense. And I think it's pros and cons. That does that provide a recreational benefit, and we're able to put up with that little bit of extra effort to get into those places, or if you're doing something at that and it's like one of those permanent events, can we get a easier cart down there as part of that kind of thing to make it easier to get your stuff in there too? Maybe that's something that we consider as well, when you're trying to move a bunch of goods. Now that we are making it, we are making it slightly more challenging, right? It's like a longer way around. There's no doubt about it.
And that doesn't mean that that's unsurmountable to me, but I would want to see that you did your due diligence and came with a matrix and said, just like you have this of all the people that were in support of it, something similar to that. Here's the 10 locations in town we looked at. Here's the reasons why these are not suitable and why this is the most, just saying because our parks director recommended it. We need a little more, I think, a little more to support.
Sure. I think we can document that, especially in this design process phase, to help clarify that in more detail. Because we have really, I think there is a good bit of thought that's gone into it if I think about all the discussions we have, but it's not really, that aspect of it isn't terribly well documented, in terms of what is in town versus like taking it up by the ice rink and stuff, where it now becomes less of an attraction and less accessible. And I think for me, that immediately I want to I really am not excited about that aspect of it. I want to bring it where it's really close and easy and accessible, to encourage time closer to town, closer to businesses, easier access. And then it's from there, it's okay, what are our options in that regard? And
I think just people movers, like they use at the airports.
Oh, as far as what goes?
No, just being able to get past it.
Sure. I see what Jim's saying. It's like Jim's saying that, hey, look, if you're putting an event on and you're trucking a lot of stuff around there, like it does take a little bit extra. So Jesse, you put a note in there just that Gercio Field was shot down as a potential location with all the reseeding and stuff going on. Was that the main reason? And just like everybody wants to do everything at Gercio. And understandably, right? It's a beautiful location. You look over the lake, it's awesome, but it seems to come in and be challenging, and it's not really part of the Gercio Field master plan either to have the pump track there, so that we don't really get the support from the master plan in that way. But Jim, I'm open to sort of discussing this more and shoring up the positions of that so that people have a good understanding of it, because I appreciate what you're saying there.
Yeah, well,
I'll have to come down and move stuff if you give me a heads up.
Well, and it's not insurmountable because I do see that the trails are there, but of course the most direct path is across the grass right now, and there's some question about whether or not, I don't know. I think people in Nederland just hate change in general. The other thing I would say when you're presenting this in the future, boy, in addition to talking about that funding, where the funding is going to come from, the other one that I saw a lot of comments on was, what about the ongoing maintenance cost? And you've addressed that a little bit, but boy, those are the things right up front in the presentation you want to hit hard, just to alleviate your concerns right up front. We're going to fund this privately. The town is not going to be on the hook for $20,000 a year for maintenance. All those things that are going to, the low-hanging fruit that the community is going to say, to try and say that. And I'm not saying that I will never or cannot support it in that location. I'm just saying I'd like to see a little more information on how the other locations were exhausted and why they are not possible. Because what comes to mind right now, I know people are going to say this is already designated for affordable housing, but the old town shop site is level, and right behind the you know, and there's RTD parking there close. It's close to the community center. It's pretty close to town. So you know, when you talk about, we've looked at sites already, you know, it would be good for your homework to come back and say, here are the 10 sites we've looked at, and here's why we've eliminated them, and why this is for sure the most and best place for us to use it. And then I think you'll, you know, because ultimately we had pushback like nobody's business for Tungsten Village, you know, and that's been one of the best things that's ever happened to our community. And it took 2 years. My church, my pastor and I went down to every VOT meeting and talked against the people that were, you know, and talked in favor of that were saying this is going to be horrible for our town, you know. So you know, you can tell people you're giving out free ice cream in Nederland, and they're going to say, well, there's going to be drips. You know, what's going to happen now? It'll all melt. You know? So you got to anticipate that a little bit.
Maybe the culture's changing, you know?
I hope so. Other questions?
No, we appreciate it. And it helps us, you know, as we move through the process, because we are in the design phase. That stuff is technically still on the table. And so, you know, I want to hear that stuff. That's why we're doing it this way.
Other commissioners?
One more thought, kind of in the direction that Jim was talking about, is that you might directly address people that don't bike. Like, how would this benefit them? And kind of also directly address how it might negatively impact them. Like, what are the downsides? And I totally get it. You're a really positive guy. You've got great energy. But one of the things that is going to come up, if the downsides aren't addressed,
you know, it's a good question.
It's better to do that way up front.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was done.
No, you're good. I didn't mean to interrupt you. So I think the interesting thing is we haven't really been seeking out the negatives, you know.
Of course.
In that
You're in the
regard.
design phase. That's
but
natural.
we have thought about the pros and cons relative to, like, does this fit into the community goals and master plan, and that it really does. And so we're letting that kind of be our guiding light there with what we're doing. And of course the personal excitement around it, right? Like there's an acknowledgement to that gets things done. Just like, you know, Jim making Tungsten Village happen, going down there, it's like, if you're passionate and want to see this happen, you got to show up and make it happen, right? And encourage that to happen. But it actually, of all the things, like, I can think of a lot of cons for other projects and things like this. It is actually like the list is tough to come up with for, you know, more recreational opportunities that are really fun in the form of a pump track. Here's one that I'll throw out that we encountered that we overcame, but asphalt contributes to global warming, you know? So, like, that's a negative. And so things like that, you know, it's like that aspect of it. Is it enough to not have this recreational opportunity? You know, that if we do it a different way, like, we have to go from a maintenance perspective, we have to change all that. So, you know, it's interesting, and I'm really open to brainstorming all the negatives if people are interested in doing that. But it's actually, thankfully, a tough one to find the negatives of, you know.
Hey, Justin, your mic's working again, buddy. I can hear your kids back there.
My 4-year-old in the background. Okay, good.
Yeah. And I hope that this comes off as constructive criticism.
No, it is.
Because
it
I'd love to see this succeed. I'm not sure about the location, but I mean, I'm not a biker myself, but I see that this is really a really exciting thing for a lot of people, and I think the town could use it. But
and I think that's a good exercise to do, Mike, is just to ask yourself, like, as a non-biker, what do you see the benefits to be, you know, as well?
Yeah.
And I'll ask you that, kind of like, is there anything just kind of off the top of your head that you think, like, oh, I could see this being a benefit, even if you don't know for sure, you know, because it's an interesting perspective.
Hard to tell. I mean, most of the time when I've been talking to people and saying, no, there's a pump track thing on the planning commission agenda. If they're bikers, like, dude, awesome. I'd love to use it. And if they're not a biker, they say, what the hell's a pump track? So there's an educational factor. And it's also
That
for
makes sense.
myself as like what would it be like to be on a pump track? I
Yeah.
doubt it's something that I would personally utilize, but I like seeing people having a good time, and I can absolutely see how a lot of the kids would really benefit for it and from it in a community space. Like I I guess that's an indirect benefit to me personally, but it's still absolutely a benefit, like a tighter community. So
Yeah.
that's a benefit there.
Cool.
But I tend to see the positive things as
Well,
well.
we need more people like that.
Not everybody will.
That's
Yeah, right. Yeah,
we don't need more of the negative necessarily. That's
yeah,
not helping us.
yeah. But it's important to look at the negative too. That's
It
kind of my
is.
point.
If it has a
Yeah,
negative
yeah,
impact on the community in a serious
yeah,
way or in a way that is an unintended
yeah,
consequence, then it's
yeah,
definitely worth it.
yeah,
If it's just a nature of
yeah.
I don't like pump tracks because I don't like pump tracks, well, that's a little more challenging to entertain.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Compromise is the key. So,
Definitely never going to make everybody happy in this town. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you that you're going to get a chance to give this presentation probably 6 more times
I think, yeah.
before this ever comes to fruition. You're going to get a lot more public that'll come back. The other
Yep.
thing, that's what I forgot I was trying to think of earlier,
Oh,
is
yeah.
make sure and let people know that this is in the preliminary stages right now, because people flip out when they see something show up on Facebook and they show it up in one of our packets and they think, what? This is going to get built in a month? Because they think it's a done deal, because they don't know how it is. So,
Wouldn't that
when
be
you
great?
talk, it could be, unless you're somebody
there's
who's concerned.
pros and cons.
Yeah.
Pros and cons. You know,
Yeah.
that's why there is a process.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
that's just
so-
joking, having gone through all the other
Yeah.
processes.
Let me ask
Right,
you,
so-
was ProSab, was the entire group supportive of this, or did you have anybody that was not 100% on board?
Jesse, do you remember if ProSab was unanimous?
Yeah, I mean
I'm-
it's a yes and
Yeah.
no answer, because they actually sent Sam and I back to the drawing board 3 times. We went to them and said, hey, we'd like to
Yeah.
get your support on this, and they said come back with more information, more paperwork. And finally we showed up with the petition of support, and that's when we had a unanimous vote of support at that point.
Okay.
And we also had this is actually cool to know, from the NDDA, we had a unanimous vote of support for a pump track. Not necessarily, there was just a split on the vote, like they voted in favor of from a majority standpoint, but there was not a complete unanimous vote around whether or not they felt that this funding was NDDA funding from their pool for the design process. That was the thing they were split on, but they were all unanimous in support of the actual recreational facility of a pump track, essentially.
Right, and the youth advisory board voted unanimous support, and the DDAs voted for support, and sustainability advisory board voted unanimous support as well. And if I'm missing any of the other boards, I think that about covers it.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate your time. We're getting pretty close where we need to kind of get moving on. Is there other final questions we could get from any commissioners here? Any last burning issues you want to talk about? Because we will see this again, I promise you.
Yeah.
Okay, hearing none, then I'm going to thank you. Go ahead, please.
Also be covered. Sorry. Yes or no? Will the maintenance also be covered privately, or will that be on town?
Jesse, do you want to speak to that?
Good question. I don't think we've really crossed that bridge yet.
Gotcha.
So,
okay, good enough.
Yeah, we'll dive into that, and next time we present to you, we'll have that answer.
Awesome. Thanks. Sorry for dragging it out.
No, that's cool.
There's no problem at all. Okay, well, thanks very much. I appreciate, Sam. This looks like a really great opportunity for our town. I think that you could convince people if you come back with a little bit more information on why this is the best place. That would just be my recommendations. I gave you my feedback, and I'm sure that we'll have an opportunity to get more feedback from the public in the future. Thanks so much.
I love it.
Are we going to do
Thank you all
a
for having us.
or anything they wanted to?
Yeah, I was curious if you guys would do a nod of 4 or.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So do we have a nod of 4 commissioners that are in support of the pump track and giving the information we have so far going forward? Just physically nod your head or give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up would be good. Okay, one down.
This is Steve.
Not
I'm
at
on the
this
phone,
location.
so I can't thumbs up, but I'm in full support of the pump track, but like Jim said earlier, I have serious questions about its proposed location, so I would certainly do more homework on that part.
I guess I have not spoken, Jim, so I should actually say, yeah, I think everything you guys doing is right. I would like to have a category understanding of why down at the Garcia Field, we can't go there. But I think that Jim Reese's comments about just a tight fit and the other activities there at the pavilion, there's just a little conflict. But I certainly would not, I'm not going to make a big deal and stand against it because I think you've done a lot of work. I would make one suggestion.
Sure.
You're really good at fundraising. Get a whole lot of money and buy the propane tank.
I think that's a great idea, Roger.
And put your
I'm gonna
park
go
right
look at
there.
it.
It's
Not
a
a bad
perfect
idea.
place.
Not a bad idea.
That's a perfect spot
I think
for
that's
it
a
right
fantastic idea. I'm gonna write it down
No,
and we'll go
whatever,
look at
but
it. It's like
yeah,
we could.
I,
It's an option in the physical world. Like it's totally possible, right? If we had enough money, we'd go buy it and put it there.
But so I'm close to say, yeah, go for it, because I don't want to say, what you've done and gotten the community support. But but my reservations are exactly what Jim said. It's just a tight fit, too awful close to that pavilion. That's it. But if that's the only spot we can do it, then that's what we should do. So I guess
this is Steve. The
half
other
and
concern, the other concern I have too is that I've noticed that when cars pull up and kids jump out and they run across that field, they're not going to want to run around it. I'm just concerned about them running across the pump track or possibly get hit by car or skateboard or something like that. Did you guys think about, like, you're going to put a fence around it, or how does it going to kind of fit there?
So that's one of the benefits, is that's part of this design consideration phase, to really hammer out those unique details that this location requires, to do it in a way that is, directing traffic appropriately, keeping it safe from people sprinting across it in a place where maybe they are. I mean, it's pretty clear that there's people riding it. I've been around these, and people tend to just respectfully recognize there's a bike moving on it and, take the path instead. But that is part of the design consideration phase. And one of the great things about the public input aspect is when we move through that, people being able to come and say, okay, this particular track, wherever the location may end up being, let's make sure we consider these things. So I'll write it down. And we are, just know that we are thinking about those aspects of it. And also that's why we're bringing in a professional design firm, because they're building these in parks all around the country and already having to think of these things. So that's another benefit that we get, because we get all their knowledge from their other projects brought into this.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the one advantage of having it like at Garcia Field or somewhere like that, where you have more space, is that when this thing takes off and there's a lot of good interest, and maybe in the future you're able to expand on it, you've got the room to do it. Whereas in Chipeta, you're kind of, land
you're a little bit
limited.
Right?
So
once you put it in, you're.
So anyway, I would keep that in mind too, as far as expansion goes.
I think that's totally valid. Appreciate it.
Hi, this is Linda, and I am in support of the pump track. I, like everybody else, have concerns about the limitations at Chipeta Park. And Roger, you took my suggestion about the propane area. Get enough money and buy the place down there. That would be perfect. because then you
I'll
can
go
expand.
find out what the asking price is, you know, see what they do for
I mean, that would be perfect place. Plus,
It'd be
the
super cool.
visibility would be unreal.
Amazing, right?
Yes. So
I love it.
something to
We
look
can go
into.
find out. I mean, we should go ask, you know, what the heck?
Oh,
Yeah.
Go find
Sam,
out.
it's Miranda. I would recommend you connect with Trustee Sterling. She's actually been in contact with the owners and starting to create the relationship. Obviously, we can't go straight into an ask, so I would just want to respect the process she's navigating there with the owners of that, but she would be a good resource to you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Linda. Were you finished?
Yeah, I was finished because most of the ideas that I've been listening to were things I was going to bring up, but I think we've covered it pretty well. But I am in support.
How about we do this? I don't want to cut anybody's comment off, but we do want to be cognizant of the fact that we have some sick town manager on the line right now who's trying to gut it out. So why don't we hold most comments until we get this presentation again? Can we do a nod of 4 that we're in support of the pump track, but we do not support the current location without further information? Is that something that we can get a nod of 4 on? Give me a thumbs up if you can approve it for the pump track as an idea with more information on future locations. I see 3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
Okay.
I was a yes, Jim.
All right. So you got a nod of all of us that we are in support of the pump track, but would like to have a little more information on the location and what the implications would be for that if we had to go forward at Chipeta there.
Wonderful. We appreciate you guys giving us the time here this evening, and like you said, I'm sure we'll be back.
We will see you again. Thanks, Sam.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you too.
Okay. Where are we? Okay. We're on to the staff reports, and what we're going to do is, since Miranda's not feeling well, and that is a very lengthy staff report, we're going to allow you, and unfortunately, you guys that are writing the comments, they're coming up and coming down faster than I can read them, and I don't know how to access them wherever they are. So if you have something that,
chat.
Okay, I'm not sure, but if you have something that we're not addressing that you're putting in the chat, you want to just go ahead and break in and tell us what it is. You won't hurt my feelings.
I saw it. It was Mike's, and I'll just add it to the minutes so that way it's documented. Any of these chats.
Okay, great.
And just for clarification, the majority of the chats I think came from Jesse when he didn't have mic access.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to say everybody can review the staff report on their own, and if you have questions because you were diligent and you read through it ahead of time, like all of us have done, now would be the time to ask any questions of Miranda or Britt.
I have a question. I mean, the only one, well, I shouldn't say the only one, but which concerns us was, can you go over the funding for the comp plan and the grant?
Yes, so the town received the Energy and Mineral Impact Grant from DOLA, which is a 50-50 match grant. The comprehensive plan costs $200,000, so DOLA will kick in $100,000, and then the town reserves will be the other $100,000. And we're going to bring forward a supplemental budget here in July that kind of releases those funds for the plan.
Do we really need 200,000?
That's what was recommended by DOLA and some consultants and other communities I talked with, is that your average plan, comprehensive plan, costs minimum 200,000. We actually are using 200,000 just for a transportation plan. So 200,000 is an appropriate amount for a comprehensive plan.
Okay, if you say so. I'll work for free.
All right. You can provide input for free on all the input you want.
So,
So we will
Miranda,
just
this is
timeline
Steve.
on that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask about the timeline. You
Yeah.
read my mind.
Okay, good. So the timeline will bring the request for proposal for the Board of Trustees to approve on July 11th. Goal would be to release by the end of the month, selecting a contract before the end of August. We anticipate the comprehensive plan will go until December 2024, so about 18 months. Reason for that is also allowing the housing needs assessment, the transportation multimodal plan, the marketing plan, the trails master plan, for those all to reach their final points so they can be incorporated into the comprehensive plan. So all kind of happening at the same time.
And we decided that we'd have the 3 mile plan as part of the comp plan?
Yeah, so under DOLA funding, you're required to have the 3 mile plan. You also have to incorporate water, housing, sustainability and energy initiatives. There's quite a few stipulations under DOLA funding, but one of the biggest ones is the 3 mile plan.
Great. Thank you.
Did you have something else, Steve?
Yeah. So based on all that, I know that, we definitely want all those other plans to be incorporated. So with their schedules and everything, when do you think realistically we could actually start working on the comp plan?
So we're going to start the comp plan, of course, now, with data collection being the first. So the housing needs assessment is set to end December 2023. The marketing and branding work will probably end around the same time, but we have until April. Multimodal transportation plan goes until April. So I think really you're looking at probably 6 months of data collection and collaborating with those other plans. And then April through December of 2024, drafting of the comprehensive plan. And kind of the strategy here is that outreach would happen in a collaborative way. So instead of survey fatigue, where you're taking 700 different surveys for different things, we can all come together, and while soliciting feedback on transportation, we could also talk about some of the components that would fall into a comprehensive plan.
Okay. When do you think we could have the consultant on board? Do you think it's this fall?
August is our goal, is to award a contract in August. Yeah. And then the board will have to decide, if you may recall, there was a Board of Trustees meeting 6 months ago, feels like, where we talked about who would be a part of the team that worked with the consultants. And it was very important that, each board appoints somebody. So we'll bring that back around to the Planning Commission to talk about who should serve on what Nicole was calling the Tiger team, but some sort of, guiding group that has representation from all the boards and commissions, as well as other community stakeholders.
Okay, good.
Hey, Miranda, when we had the DOLA folks come and give that training, they had talked about a comp plan, and I'm just saying this as background to get to the question if we're going to get this, where the consultant or the person who came and led the process would also be the person who was the leader of the community engagement meetings, kind of running those, getting feedback from the public. And they talked about how they have skill in being able to combat acrimony and infighting from the community. Is that still our goal, to get the professionals to kind of lead that effort?
Yes, that is 100% our goal. Yeah, we're really struggling with it a little bit under housing. And so recognizing that whatever consultant is selected needs to come with a robust and probably pretty non-traditional engagement. It can't just be your standard social media, your websites, your events. Like, we're not hearing from people in those formats. So getting really creative. And that's going to be one of the evaluating criteria when the consultants are interviewed is, are they thinking outside the box in terms of how to engage our community? Because 100 isn't enough. We can't build a comprehensive plan if only, a tenth of the community shows up. It's just not going to work.
Okay. I will tell you that I thought that the the meeting we did at Chipeta Park with the multi-board first kind of engagement meeting where we all got together, if there was a series of meetings like that over the course of 6 months with the community, and they were well publicized, and you gave everybody in the community a chance to come out and voice their opinions at, let's say, 10 of those type engagement meetings, I think you'd have to say then, okay, if you didn't have your say, it's because you didn't want to.
Right. That is something we've been talking a lot about with Peter, and just this newfound, emphasis on public engagement is we can try, but at some point the community also has to show up. And so, but trying to give them every avenue that they can do that will be very important. But yes, we would expect the consultants to play the lead role with staff supporting along the way.
Great. Is there anything that you want to highlight, not going through the entire staff report, but is there any nuggets you want to pick out?
It's so funny. That's why I actually sent Jim a message. I'm like, brain of fog over here. I just think, housing needs assessment, if you haven't had a chance, I know I've highlighted this a few times over, but we're giving it kind of 2 more weeks and would really like people to complete that housing needs assessment. So if you haven't, please do. We do understand it's long, but very important. And that just, is a shout out to Public Works. They're doing quite a bit. And Mark is slowly getting his new equipment in that we did a loan for. And so that's going to help a lot. And hopefully you've seen him out and about around town. He also did a really great presentation before the Board of Trustees. Maybe you want to check it out, or we could always invite him maybe to a future meeting about his plans for summer road maintenance. It's a 4-step phase process. And so that was at the last Board of Trustees meeting, and I could send out the link. He's got a great PowerPoint that just reviews kind of how they're really focused on addressing drainage and trying to tackle some of the heart of the issues in the community from a road maintenance standpoint, and then eventually looking at culvert installation. That's going to be a huge piece to resolving some of our roadway issues, but trying to figure out how do we do it so it's not a heavy expense for the homeowner. So a great presentation from him, and I'm happy to forward that on. Yeah, and so I think, and then the other great thing is Mark secured some estimates for paving the visitor center parking lot. Finally, it's coming, it's happening. So we hope to kick that off soon. And then finishing out the paving of Big Springs. We weren't able to finish getting all the way to the top of Big Springs Drive. And so getting it to where all the roads intersect, taking it the rest of the way and incorporating that when we pave the visitor center lot. And then I guess the other thing is Andrew hydrant flushing. You should have seen posts. He did a fun video. They're hydrant flushing that does change the color of your water. We actually signed up for a non-emergency form of Everbridge where you're going to get a text message alert if your phone number is registered with your utility account that lets you know when we're flushing the hydrant in your area. We're able to use a GIS software to really narrow in where if we know you might be impacted, we'll send you a quick text alert. So if your phone number is not registered with your utility billing account, we encourage you to do so that you do receive those messages. And we'll use that for all non-emergency reasons. So any work done by Public Works, utilities, parks, streets, or even our emergency manager, if it's non-emergent in nature.
Okay, well, that's great. I personally would like to please do send out that link to the Public Works 4-step grading plan. I would love to see that because I've got some pictures of the road in front of my house. And then also, would you please, or Britt or somebody, resend that housing needs assessment because it's lost in my email somewhere, and I will make an effort to get that done before Friday.
I'll send
you'll send that out to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, like, if you don't have time to do it, I've had a lot of great feedback where people have just come into my office and, kind of given me outlooks. So if you don't have time, please just any feedback that Derek is able to take it and really compile it when we start looking into what changes can be made in code.
Yeah. And when you send that out, Britt, put in the subject line like final request, all in caps, something that's going to get my attention from all the other 50 emails.
I will, and then I'll text you every day.
Son,
And what's the final date that we're gathering all this at this point? I know it's been backed up.
So 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from
yeah, so
mid-July.
so the 12th.
Yeah, thank you.
hey, Britt, that the link was it's on the website, it's on the town website, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
That's one of the top banners. But there's not only the survey, there's the interactive map, and we would love if people did both. So Britt's got kind of a standard email she sent out and can resend. And Britt, maybe you want to just send it to all the advisory board and commissions with that same like last chance message.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you get another 10 people that fill it out, it'll just be a bonus.
Yeah, if
Okay,
you already
well,
filled it out, do it again. Vote early, vote often.
Okay, any questions, any final questions for Miranda or Britt? Anything under other business?
Maybe I'll just add really quick. I know it was a long staff report. We actually are finding value in all the boards, including all of our reports. So sorry for all the reading, but hopefully it was helpful to see not only just my report, but pulling from everybody's.
That was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Miranda. But Miranda, the behavioral health, all that information was kind of overwhelming. What's like the next like action item or main point to get across from all of that?
Yeah, so they did a public engagement session, I think 2 weeks ago. So
and sorry, one more thing. Like what's like this is like a state funding thing, or
it's
like
a Boulder County funded.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they're using some of their ARPA, American Rescue Plan funds for this. So they really want to do this kind of community-wide approach to behavioral health. And this is just really step one. So, the committees put together kind of their respective strategies to addressing each of the areas listed as kind of critical goals and strategies, and then sought feedback. But the Behavioral Health Committee is going to just kind of keep working on whittling down the strategies, because one thing I've said as a member of the committee is, they're just not mountain oriented. You talk about access to resources, but you're still talking about down below. You're not talking about Nederland. And so myself and Lions really feel like we're missing that Nederland or mountain community connection. So this is just kind of first round, and we'll just keep going to make sure that these strategies are inclusive of not only all people, but also all regions within the county.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Nope. Thanks, Jim, for taking over with me. I'm hoping that we can get home here tomorrow, but it's not looking promising. For those of you who don't know, we're stuck in the Boston area. They've had a lot of flight cancellations. Weather's been terrible. And now we're getting into 4th of July where all the flights are already full. So it's been a real headache to try to figure all this out, get back home.
Greyhound. I would entertain a motion.
I move that
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Do you want to call the vote, Britt?
Yeah, sorry. I was starting that email. Commissioner Dye?
I'm sorry, just an all in favor or?
Oh, yeah, all in favor?
Thumbs up.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
Good job, Jim. Thank you.
Right. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you so much for gutting it out,
Good luck, Steve.
both Britt
Better,
and Miranda.
Thank you. Thanks for moving this virtual. I think we both very much appreciate it.
Super appreciate it. I'm on day 11, so I'm hoping to get some relief here soon. So.
All right. Well, feel better. I'll pray for you guys. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
And I'll pray for you too, Steve.
Well, we'll be there sometime. We'll let you know.